10th, 2021 as presented. See a hand up, James?
Yes, through you, Mayor Peabody. I will ask, this is our first meeting in some time since some events have taken place. So I just ask that this evening, if possible, in the light of the recent court decision involving our Saugeen Municipal Airport, Mr. Lingershman, I believe it's important that this council be provided this evening an update regarding the path forward between the parties involved and the future access to the airport to the individual. I would like to amend the agenda under new business to include a verbal report from our Brockton councillor, our representative, Saugeen Municipal Airport Chair, Deputy Mayor Gierzak. And I would also again like to suspend the procedural bylaw for this evening to allow this to be addressed tonight, as I was quite surprised not to see it on the agenda.
Okay. So there's different ways of dealing with that. We could leave it for the closed session. See on there, item 15, first bullet point. It is coming up under that. And if you would like to, after that is covered, if you want to advance any business, and you can do that when we return to open under section 17.
I believe through Mayor
we deal with it, but it's up to council.
Sure.
Yep.
I think this is more of an open session conversation now that the matter is resolved publicly, and I would like to see it spoken to tonight, and hopefully council shares the same.
Okay.
Through you, Mayor Peabody, if it would be helpful, I could try to put together a draft motion that captures what Councillor Lang has just requested. And that way council may have something that they can hear, and we could have that as a vote if you'd like, if that would maybe provide some structure and assistance in getting somewhere.
Okay, well, if it's okay with council, we can add it on the agenda somewhere. As I said, it already is, but if Councillor Lang wants to, is there a, so Councillor Lang has moved to discuss the airport business on the agenda. Is there a seconder for that?
I'll second it.
Okay, so all those in favor? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, opposed? All right. I'll look to Ms. Hamilton for guidance where to add that on the agenda, since that has been voted on, but well, it's not the matter at hand now, so we can move on till Ms. Hamilton gives you some guidance on that.
Through you, Mayor Peabody, perhaps then the easiest thing may be simply to amend the motion to accept the agenda, and at the end we could write with the addition of a verbal update regarding the Saugeen Municipal Airport during new business.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, I'll put that in for the minutes. Okay, now we'll move on to our public meeting under the Planning Act. We have a planning report, bylaw amendment, Z 2021-38. So I'll welcome Ms. Smith, our Bruce County planner, to present her report on the amendment that's been submitted by Kevin McCaig for a property out in Cargill. Okay. Welcome to our meeting, Ms. Smith.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Peabody. If there's any members of the public who would like to receive notification of this application, please contact the clerk at the municipality, or you can email the county at bcplwa@brucecounty.on.ca. Again, if there is also members of the public who would like to speak to this item tonight who have not previously provided comments, please do so when requested at the appropriate time by the clerk. So the purpose of this application is to rezone the lands at 203 Cargill Road in the hamlet of Cargill from Hamlet Commercial to Hamlet Commercial Special with Holding. If approved, the proposed amendment would permit 5 accessory dwelling apartment units in addition to the commercial uses that exist on the property. Special provisions, including a holding provision, are proposed. At this time, county staff are recommending deferral of a decision on the application to a later date, pending confirmation that the proposed development, that being the change of use to allow for residential uses, is situated outside of the flood and erosion hazards of the adjacent Teeswater River, that access to the site is safe for vehicles and pedestrians during times of flooding hazards and erosion hazards, that off-street residential parking is available and viable in the long term, and that there is confirmation that an archaeological assessment is not required, and that if one does end up being required, that the recommendations of that report be implemented. The applicant is also being asked to provide documentation that the habitat of endangered and threatened species have been appropriately addressed. So in reviewing the subject application, the county did review first and foremost the context of the application. So as noted, the property is located in Cargill and it's directly adjacent to the Teeswater River. There is an existing building on the property that contains 2 commercial units and 3 residential units. Should be noted that the existing 3 residential units are legal non-conforming uses. Internal renovations are proposed to the building that would add 2 additional residential units to the building, and there is also a replacement septic system proposed. The property is designated in the county official plan as Hamlet Community and Hazard Land Area, which is identified in the mapping attached to the report. And the subject lands are zoned in the comprehensive Brockton zoning bylaw as Hamlet Commercial and Environmental Protection. As noted previously, the proposed amendment is to rezone those lands with special provisions that would allow for accessory apartment dwelling unit in addition to the commercial uses. Currently, the zoning bylaw only allows an accessory apartment dwelling in the Hamlet commercial zone if it's for the operator of a hotel or motel, which is not the situation on the current site. So site-specific permission is required to add apartment units as a permitted use in this zone. The amending bylaw also proposes a minimum unit size, a maximum unit count, and to add accessory apartment dwelling units as a permitted use. It would also recognize the existing buildings as being in compliance with the bylaw where they are currently or may be currently deficient with respect to setbacks. And it's proposed that the environmental protection zone would remain unchanged. So as it relates to the reasons why county staff are recommending deferral, first and foremost relates to the natural hazards on the property. So specifically with respect to the Teeswater River, which does flow adjacent to the site, as noted on the site plan that's attached to the report, there are flood and erosion hazards associated with that feature. The Conservation Authority, specifically Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority, does review and provide comments to county staff, and they have identified that the mapping available in the county plan as well as the zoning bylaw does match the Saugeen Valley Conservation Hazard Land mapping. However, it is noted that based on their site review that the processes associated with the river may extend beyond the area that's currently mapped. And currently, as identified in the mapping, a corner of the existing building is within that hazard land area. So the agency, specifically the Conservation Authority, has asked for additional technical studies to define the hazard limit on the site to ensure that the proposal is appropriate for this location. Hazard lands include areas that are susceptible to natural hazard processes, including flooding and erosion. And for that reason, it is important to ensure that development is generally directed away from those locations to ensure there's no impact to life and property. Adding the proposed residential units to the permitted uses on the site would increase the number of residential units, and if in fact it is located within the hazard lands, would potentially put additional people at risk. The Conservation Authority has further advised that there is potential that safe access to the site is not available because of the flooding and erosion hazards associated with the river. And again, they've asked for additional studies to confirm whether or not that is the case. Based on conversation with the Conservation Authority, they are looking for a floodplain analysis as well as a review by a structural engineer should it be confirmed that the hazard extends further than what is existing and shown in our mapping. And for that reason, that is the primary reason as to why county staff are recommending deferral of the application to allow for those additional studies to occur. With respect to review of the services on the site, there is an existing private well and private septic system, and the applicant is proposing to replace the septic system. Both the existing and proposed septic systems are located within the floodplain of the Teeswater River. And the chief building official has identified that there are certain standards for sewage replacements as it relates to location and proximity to a river and in the floodplain. So the applicant is being asked to work with the chief building official and other municipal staff as appropriate, as well as the Conservation Authority to ensure that that septic system can be replaced and meet current provincial standards. The feasibility of the replacement should be confirmed before the zoning bylaw amendment is considered. That is to ensure that there is servicing available for those additional units. The next comment that the county staff wanted to raise was with respect to parking. So there are currently a proposal, or sorry, there is currently a proposal to provide off-site parking for this project. There is one parking unit per residential apartment dwelling unit that is required under the bylaw, and that is to be located not more than 150 meters away from the site. And in this case, the applicant has identified that they have entered into an agreement with one landowner and have a verbal commitment from another to provide those 5 parking spaces that would be required for the residential units. Those lands are similarly zoned to the current site, which is also a requirement per the provisions of the bylaw, and they are located within 150 meters of the site. However, county staff are seeking further confirmation, one from the Conservation Authority that the parking specifically on the site that is within the environmental protection zone is appropriate for that location, and also further confirmation through discussions with the applicant and Brockton staff that those
Welcome to Bell.
external,
For English, press 1.
sorry about that. They are seeking confirmation from staff that the zoning is also appropriate for that residential parking purpose. The last 2 points that I just briefly wanted to touch upon was one with respect to the archaeological potential on the property. And we did receive requests from the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation that if the site had not been previously disturbed and that an archaeological assessment be provided. It was noted through pre-consultation that the site had been heavily disturbed, and for that reason, we're just looking for additional information from the applicant to provide to the First Nation to confirm that the archaeological assessment is not required in this instance. But given the extent of the disturbance on the site, it's hopeful, based on county staff's review, that that hopefully can be addressed. The other item is with respect to natural heritage, and the Conservation Authority also provides comments to the county relating to natural heritage. They have identified several natural heritage features either on or adjacent to the property, and specifically with respect to endangered species and threatened species, they are seeking confirmation that the applicant has reached out to the appropriate ministry to ensure that those endangered and threatened species have been adequately addressed. Those species specifically do relate to fish habitat, and so it is recommended that the applicant reach out to the ministry and provide documentation that that has or can be satisfactorily addressed through the permits issued on the property. You will note in the maps that were provided with the report that we have included the county official plan map. While the site is designated hamlet community and hazard land area, the hazard land area unfortunately is not showing up on our mapping, but it does coincide with the environmental protection zoning on the map below. So I just wanted to highlight that for the council's consideration. And we did receive agency comments from the municipality of Brockton, the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, the Bruce Grey Catholic District School Board, as well as Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority. And the full comments from the Conservation Authority are attached to the report. The members of the public, there were no comments actually received from members of the public at the time that this report was prepared. And I will leave it to Fiona to canvass if there are any members of the public who would have additional comments to provide to council through your consideration this evening. So that concludes my report. I'm happy to take any questions in that regard.
Okay, thank you for the report, Ms. Smith. Okay, I think at this point in the public meeting, we'll have the applicant's planner, Ms. Scott, address those 4 items that need to be addressed in terms of a holding provision. So we have Ms. Scott from Cuesta Planning. Welcome to our meeting.
Thank you very much, Mayor Peabody. Can everyone hear me all right tonight?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
Yep.
okay, great. Thank you. So good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Genevieve Scott and I work at Cuesta Planning. And we were retained by Mr. Kevin McKeag, the applicant, to prepare a planning report in support of the subject zoning bylaw amendment, which would permit the use of accessory apartments in addition to the primary commercial use at 203 Cargill Road. As you will note, Mr. McKeag is also in attendance tonight, and following my comments, he would be happy as well to respond to any questions and provide further detail related to the proposal. As staff has noted, the subject parcel contains 2 two-story buildings which share a structural wall. And the wall on the 2nd floor has an existing opening to allow movement between the 2 buildings. The primary use of the structure is 2 storefront commercial operations, which are predominantly tourism oriented and have historically only been open during the summer months. There are 2 accessory apartments located on the 2nd floor of the structure and 1 apartment on the main floor. As staff noted, the existing apartments are considered legal non-conforming uses. The apartment that is currently located on the main floor will be moved to the upper level as part of the approval process. Therefore, the intent of the application is to permit 2 further accessory apartment units for 5 apartment units in total. And this represents a fairly minor intensification at this site. The development is also to be entirely contained within the existing structure and on the 2nd floor of that structure, with pedestrian access from Cargill Road proposed along the east side of the building. The apartment units will offer affordable housing opportunities to full-time residents of the municipality, as well as some shorter-term rental accommodation options for contract workers. The residential uses will also serve to support the existing commercial use on the ground floor and will help to maintain the building. I'd like to thank Karina for her report and summary of the agency comments to date, and I'd like to take this opportunity to provide a response to some of the concerns that have been identified. The first concern relates to natural hazards on the site. And as noted by the planning staff, recent Conservation Authority comments did confirm that the environmental protection zone, as shown in the Brockton zoning bylaw for the property, does generally coincide with the Conservation Authority hazard land as mapped by the Conservation Authority. Despite this, the Conservation Authority staff has maintained a concern related to the potential for flooding hazards on the site, whether or not that might impact redevelopment at this location. In response, I would note the following. Section 3.1.7 of the provincial policy statement indicates in part that development and site alteration may be permitted in those portions of hazardous lands where the effects and risks to public safety are minor and can be mitigated in accordance with provincial standards. And in this case, the standards relate primarily to floodproofing standards and emergency access to the site. The existing building generally falls outside of the environmental protection zoning on the subject parcel. As per the Conservation Authority policy manual, for existing development, any required floodproofing should occur to an elevation that is practical and feasible. And in this case, as all of the habitable space is proposed on the second story of the building, floodproofing is not likely to be a requirement. Should any remedial floodproofing be required, this would be regulated and implemented under the building code and fire code process during the change of use permit process. The provincial policy statement also requires that pedestrians and vehicles be provided safe access and egress during a time of emergency. And ideally, and as per the Conservation Authority policies, pedestrian and vehicle emergency evacuations should occur via a municipal roadway or right-of-way. At this site, the standard can be achieved as the building has direct access to a municipal road, which would allow emergency vehicles to readily access the site. Safe egress for pedestrians from the building would also be regulated by the building code. I would note that earlier today, my client did confirm with me that there are 2 exits proposed from the upstairs, both of which would exit onto the sidewalk at the front of the building, directly adjacent to the municipal road. As parking is proposed off-site, safe ingress in this regard is not relevant to the proposal. So it's my opinion that Section 3.1 of the provincial policy statement is met by the proposal, and this should address any concerns noted by the Conservation Authority staff. The proposal represents a minor intensification of an existing legal non-conforming use in a building that has been on the site for over 100 years. The risk to public health and safety can be considered minor and can be mitigated through the building permit process. With respect to natural heritage, the Conservation Authority correspondence did include a review related to fish habitat, wildlife habitat, and habitat of endangered and threatened species. And Conservation Authority staff confirmed that impacts are anticipated to be negligible. We did review the provincial database after receiving the Conservation Authority comments to determine what species are located on or near the site. And the identified species primarily included aquatic species associated with the river. I had a discussion following my review with a local biologist who was able to confirm that as there will be no development outside of the building except for the replacement of the sewage system, a negative impact on these species cannot be reasonably expected. So it is our opinion that the development is consistent with Section 2.1 of the PPS. With respect to servicing, as part of pre-submission discussions with planning staff, it was confirmed that we would need to review the existing or proposed servicing to ensure that the relevant provisions of the building code could be met. And since the time of our submission, it has been determined that the current system, which was installed in 1994, includes a weeping bed that is not large enough for today's code. Therefore, a replacement septic system will be built on the site to current code, which includes expanding the weeping bed and installing a Waterloo biofilter system. The new system will be located on the existing septic footprint and within the area of the existing shed, which will be removed. Replacing this system will improve the overall condition of the site. Parking has also been noted as a concern from planning staff with respect to the availability of long-term parking for the new residential use. And Mr. McKeag does have a formalized parking agreement in place for 4 parking spots at 204 Cargill Road, as well as an agreement in principle for additional spots at 1037 Greenock Grant. I would suggest that the municipality require that the parking arrangements be finalized either prior to the occupancy permit being issued for the additional apartments or through the use of a holding provision. And the use of the holding provision was suggested by the County of Bruce planning staff, and we have no concern in this regard. With respect to archaeology, pre-submission consultation did not note a requirement for an archaeological assessment to be completed as the use proposed is within an existing building. Mr. McKeag has also confirmed with planning staff prior to this meeting that the entire area for the septic replacement system has been extensively disturbed over the last 150 years. And as I noted earlier, the system will be installed in an area where the existing footprint is now of the existing septic system and on the area underneath an existing shed, which would be removed. So we feel that an archaeological assessment cannot be reasonably requested for the site. In conclusion, it's my opinion that the proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement through the efficient use of land and resources in this rural settlement area. It meets sections 2 and 3 of the PPS related to natural hazards and natural heritage. Meets the intent of the Bruce County official plan, as the proposal will aid in diversifying housing stock and providing affordable housing opportunity. It's an excellent example of leveraging some historical and cultural assets of the municipality and will assist in the long-term economic viability of the site itself, Cargill's Main Street, as well as the surrounding area. The proposal represents appropriate rural land use planning, and we respectfully request that council approve the proposed bylaw. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that succinct address of all of the items, as well as a very good summary. Okay, now I'll call on Mr. McKeag, our applicant, to add anything if he wishes to about his proposal.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thanks to the council for considering this application. Thanks to the staff, municipal staff, who have also been very helpful along this process. Thanks to the comments from the Bruce County staff and from Genevieve. Yes, I think we're certainly have a very long connection with Cargill, and really want to see some life brought back to the town, and I think this is the viable way to do it with the apartments, and it will support the bringing the building up to code and fire and safety and septic code, and it will support the storefront operations as well. And we're delighted to see the kind of response that we've been getting. People really happy to see some things happening in Cargill, and I would also be very happy to answer any more questions that anyone may have. Okay,
great. Great, and you're headed up to the site now, Mr. McKeag, in your car.
That is correct.
Up to do some work for the rest of the week. Yeah, it's sort of funny. A side note, watching you there in the car, I'm getting a bit car sick myself, so I have to look the other way. Okay, we'll now open it up to questions from council. Councillor Adams, he has his hand up.
Yeah, I'm invisible tonight, as everyone can, I guess, not see. Kevin, a quick question for you before we get started with my comments. When did your application go in? Is it what kind of time frame are we talking? Kevin?
I don't know whether, yes, thank you for that question. I'm not sure whether, Genevieve, you have that right in front of you. It would take me a little while to pull that up from my documents, but certainly I think the initial, we've been working with the staff, the Brockton staff from basically the day after we purchased the building in February. We had Chris and Dieter and Dominic on site. And then we were submitting drawings and kind of back and forth, continually working with planning staff, basically from our day one. I don't have the date in front of me of when the official application went in. Maybe Jean-Pierre has that, but it's basically from the second day that we purchased the building, we were starting to talk to the municipal staff.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. The reason for the question is, and it's sort of secondary to my main comments, but I know that there have been residents that have been waiting a long time to get some applications through, and I just wanted to bring that forward. I know a couple in specifically that have been reaching out to me, and I think also the mayor and so on. So I just want to make sure that that is seen, obviously, as a priority, is the timing element. I for one, I think we should be looking at pushing this ahead for the applicant. Quest has answered the questions, I think, pretty well. Certainly to my satisfaction. I think this is good for Cargill. And Kevin, you touched on that. You've got a new septic, you've got some additional apartments going in. And to me, it seems like a lot of improvements, and there's some roadblocks here. So I for one, would recommend going forward with it without all the holding and all the additional work. I don't know how my fellow councillors feel, but I really think we should be doing everything we can to support an individual like you, Kevin, that puts their money forward and tries to make better for our communities. So that may not sit perfectly well with all the provincial policy statements of the world, but I think we need to be helping and supporting and pushing through for developers like yourself.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Adams. Subsequent question from anybody on council? Deputy Mayor Gierzak and Councillor Elphick.
Thank you, Mayor Peabody, and thank you, Genevieve. As the mayor indicated, a very concise, very detailed presentation and explanation of your position. And I find that you've addressed each one of the items that I was, say, concerned about or had some question about. And I don't want to rehash all of those items, but certainly we're talking about improving the building code situation, improving a building, bringing it up to date. We're updating the sewage system. We're moving one residential unit from ground level to the second floor. When we think about floodplains, we've got a bridge there and many other residents within Cargill that would be subject to flooding long before the units on the second floor would be. So it seems to me that we've addressed many of these issues, or you have addressed many of these issues, and Mr. McCaig has as well. And while I can't speak for the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority, I can say that as the representative on the Conservation Authority for many years, approaching decades, I have seen many properties that wanted to expand within the floodplain that were expanding decks, expanding the size of the footprint, trying to do many of the things that we're not talking about here. We're talking about maintaining the same footprint, moving people higher away from the water and improving the septic system. So it would seem to me that we really do have a project that is very good for Cargill, very good for our requirements for affordable housing, and overall it improves the conditions of the building. So a lot of very positive things to say, and like Councillor Adams, I would certainly support moving this forward as quickly as we can. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Elphick.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, to Kevin, I just wanted to commend you for your application and for your interest in the community of Cargill. I think it's a wonderful application to see come forward and to reinvigorate this small community in Brockton. Listening to the planning staff, both Karina and to Genevieve, it was nice to see the concerns be identified and then equally to see them addressed and to be satisfied in the response. And like Deputy Mayor Gierzak and Councillor Adams, I myself as well am satisfied that this is an application that should proceed in a very timely manner to allow you to reinvigorate the walls and the space to allow for more apartments in this community. The only question that I was left with, though, is that in, I believe, Karina, your report, you had mentioned that that it was suggested that there be an assessment whether the current parking was deemed acceptable by the SVCA. And I wasn't sure if it's intended moving forward that there would be any parking on site, because then I heard that there would be 4 spaces at 204 Cargill Road and then 1 space on the Brant Greenock Town line. So is it intended for there to be motor vehicles parked on site still, or is all of that being addressed using off-site addresses? So I don't know whether Karina or Genevieve, which one of the, you want to answer that?
I can try and answer that question for you. Thank you for the question. And if I'm off base, then maybe perhaps Mr. McKay can also answer it. It is my understanding that no parking is intended for the site. It's all off-site parking.
Okay. All right, and that would be my only remaining concern and question. Of course, that as you get into the rear of that property, it is getting pretty close. But understanding now that there's no vehicles being parked down there and need to be moving to and fro, that satisfies myself. So I certainly support the application and it moving forward. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions from council? Deputy Mayor Gierzak.
Thank you, Mayor Peabody. And this one for Ms. Smith. With respect to the parking, you made the recommendation that we have some assurances in place that there are long-term agreements in place. Is that something that is specifically identified within the zoning bylaw, that there be the long-term assurances that parking will be available?
Through you, Mayor Peabody. So it does identify in the bylaw that there are requirements for parking spaces. So should those agreements somehow change or they no longer are applicable, then the applicant, if they are not able to provide those parking spaces, would need to reach out to the county and the municipality for potentially an amendment to allow for either alternative arrangements or to have that provision amended so that there would be no requirement for parking for those residential units.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Okay, so based on the comments from the council, it's clear that it's the will of council to not defer, but is the will to move forward to approve the rezoning. Lots of good comments from council. This is the type of project that we've long wanted to see out in our hamlets. We have a number of hamlets that need a little bit more attention, and we've all stated that, I know, as our goals. So I have a motion here.
Mayor Peabody?
Yes.
Before we read the motion, could we maybe just make sure that we've spent 1 second canvassing to make sure the public doesn't have any comments to raise their hand or anything just before we get to that point?
Yeah, I forgot that part.
Just to ensure that we've
Yeah.
met our requirements as a public meeting. We do have a number of individuals who are attending from the public. And I'd ask if any of those individuals would like to participate, if they could use the raise hand feature or the chat function so that I could allow you to speak. And I'll just wait a few minutes here so that people can find the buttons on their Zoom app. Okay, thank you, Mayor Peabody. It doesn't appear as though anyone is looking to participate who hasn't had an opportunity to speak yet. Oh, maybe Ms. Smith does.
Through you, Mayor Peabody, if council would allow, I did have one point of clarification from the comments that Ms. Scott had provided.
Yes, go ahead.
Just with respect to the flood hazard analysis, Ms. Scott did reference section 3.1.7 of the provincial policy statement. And those policies do specifically reference two zone areas of the floodplain, and the two zone areas where there is a flood fringe and then a faster section of the floodplain. And within the flood fringe area, there are certain development permissions available. In this case, Cargill is not identified in the Brockton zoning bylaw as a two-zone area. An example of a two-zone in Brockton is downtown Walkerton, where there is a flood fringe identified. The Conservation Authority, typically through coordination with the municipality and subject to review by the province, identifies those two-zone areas. And again, Cargill is not an identified two-zone area. So there are, I would say, somewhat stricter standards as it applies to this site compared to, for example, a property in the flood fringe in Walkerton. So I did want to provide that clarification.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Ms. Smith. All right, so I have a motion here. So what we're going to do is the motion, it states that we approve the zoning amendment, and then we have a bylaw prepared with that has 4 of the holding provisions that were identified in the initial report from our planner. I'm just not sure how many of the holding provisions to keep in our bylaw that we passed. Now I know council, we just put this together at the last minute. I'm not sure how to approach that, but I'll read the motion to approve. The bylaws come later, but I think some of these holding provisions have been addressed. So how about I read the motion first, and then I will seek guidance on how to proceed on the bylaw. Okay, so I have a motion made by Councillor Elphick, second by Councillor Lang, that the Corporation of the Municipality of Brockton accepts the planning report prepared by Karina Smith, Bruce County Planner, dated August 10th, and approves the zoning bylaw amendment submitted by Kevin McCaig, file Z 2021-38, and authorizes a site-specific bylaw coming forward with a holding provision to be removed when the applicant has satisfied outstanding considerations as outlined in the planning report. Okay, so it's the motion to go ahead. All those in favor? Okay, opposed? Okay.
Sorry,
so
Chris, I said yes, but my mute was on.
Yeah, I didn't hear you. Okay, all right, that's carried. So before we conclude the public meeting on this, Ms. Hamilton, so I have the bylaw here, and I know the bylaw is in a separate part of the meeting, but it's got the 4 holding provisions, and I know some of them have been addressed tonight. Let me give you an example. The archaeological stuff was addressed. I wouldn't want to totally cross it off. I would want to leave that we do check one more time with SON, make sure they agree that, as we all agree, that the site has been thoroughly disturbed over 150 years. I mean, I don't want to sign off on that one right away. But anyway, so how do I proceed with these 4 holding things? Some of them have been addressed. Some of them still should be addressed. How do I proceed?
Mayor Peabody, perhaps, perhaps one avenue is simply that if some items of the holding have already been addressed, then there isn't really any additional harm in having them in the bylaw, because that's just sort of information that staff will keep, and we'll sort of check off. Okay, if that's already been satisfied, then that's great. It doesn't harm anything to keep it in the bylaw. Because once all of the, really the bylaw is only going to come back for the holding to be removed once they've all been addressed. So keeping some in doesn't really harm anything if it does, make it easier for the purposes of reaching a decision at the meeting tonight. And then it really would be simply a matter of, staff communicating with Mr. McCaig and Ms. Scott to confirm the ones that have already been satisfied, and just following up on the remaining details for the ones that are outstanding, as the example that you provided, such as, reaching out to SON to ensure that, to let them know the extent to which the site has been disrupted, et cetera. So I'm not sure that it's really all that necessary to get into the weeds and to start deciding which elements of the holding to remove. Because I think really it's just that holding only gets removed when all of them have been satisfied anyway. So my suggestion, just for the sake of clarity, might be just to leave them and decide on the motion of the bylaw when we reach the bylaw stage of the agenda.
Yeah, okay, I just did one question then. With the holding, I had a question, I guess I should have asked it earlier in the meeting. With regard to Saugeen Valley's concerns about the septic, what part of their concerns are within the provincial policy and what part of their concerns may be overreach? I just don't know if the original letter from Mr. Oberly some of it seemed to go beyond what we might normally see as a concern about a septic. Deirdre, you had your hand up there. And Ms. Scott, you had your hand up too, so.
Yes, through you, Mayor Peabody, I'll provide some context potentially to what the conservation would be reviewing with regards to the on-site sewage system. So through the requirements of the Ontario Building Code, we would be required to get approval for the expansion of the on-site sewage system as we're increasing the number of dwelling units and the size of the system from the 3 to 5. So there's an increase in the daily design flow of that system. And the system is potentially located in an area where flooding may cause damage to the leaching bed or impair the operation of leaching beds. So those are requirements of the Ontario Building Code that we'll want to ensure are satisfied. So that could be some consultation that I will have to see through Mr. McKeag as well with the Conservation Authority to ensure that we have a system there that's going to operate and function properly. So
yeah, okay. Now I think one thing in their favor, we've heard it's a new system, and they're also removing a building, so that should satisfy Saugeen Valley. We're taking a building out of the watershed, and then on top of that, I know with the water biofilter, they're just fantastic. Mr. McKay can plant a garden and everything. I know I've always wanted to plant a vegetable garden on top of mine, but my wife won't let me for some reason. Okay, Ms. Scott.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Peabody. I just had a question for Mr. Welts. I was wanting to know whether or not a permit is required from the Conservation Authority or not. I know that they have some exemptions for replacement systems if it's in the same location or further away from the river. So I know you're going to be consulting with them. I just wanted to know whether or not we actually would be requiring any type of permit from them.
I can't comment on behalf of the Conservation Authority. The consultation will determine whether just their comments for, that they have minimal concern, or they'll determine if approval requirements are the formal process to be followed. So that's
okay. Thank you.
Essentially what we'll see.
Okay, all right. I think we've covered everything, and we do have the bylaw later on at the appropriate portion of the meeting. So that will conclude our public meeting. Thank you very much, Mr. McKeag. It's a fantastic project. As the rest of council said, we just love what you're doing up there. It's added a great sense of energy, and I can't wait to go up there again when you have some events. And I know you're having an opening. We're going to coordinate an opening so that all of council can be there later in August. So it's just going to be it's an event that I look forward to, and how the rest of council does. So thank you very much, Mr. McKeag. Thank you for your report, Ms. Smith. Thank you, Ms. Scott. Okay, so we will now move along on our agenda. We have the our minutes from July 13th. So moved by Councillor Adams, second by Councillor Elphick, the Council of Brockton adopt the minutes of the July 13th, 2021 council meeting as presented. All those in favor?
Yes.
Thank you, Steve. Any business arising from the minutes? No.
Just a sec, Chris.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just looking for the hand. I just wondered if a letter was sent out, the tactful letter that was under new business. I had brought up about the delays in planning and just mentioned it again. Just wondering if a letter went out to Bruce County Planning about timely service for our residents.
Yes.
Through you, Mayor Peabody, to Councillor Adams. I do have one that has been drafted, but I'm hoping that to ensure that it's both tactful but also useful, to provide some specific examples of applications that might have might be some helpful examples for the County of Bruce. So I'm just looking to confirm some of the details of those specific references, and that letter will be sent before the end of this week.
I won't name the one individual that has talked to me many times, but I can give you that name if you wanted to track that as an example.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so moving along right to the report, section 7. CBO activity report, July 21st, moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that we receive report BLD 2021-19 CBO activity report for June 2021, prepared by Dieter Welts, Building and Planning Manager for information purposes. Okay, any comments on that? Okay. All right, thank you to all our staff and the building department for keeping things moving. Those are some very strong numbers that we continue to see. So that's it's great news. Definitely headed for a record year. All those in favor?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Attendance policy, moved by Deputy Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that we approve report fire number 5, firefighter attendance policy update prepared by Chris Wells, Director of Fire and Emergency Services. And in doing so, approves a bylaw coming forward to adopt the amended firefighters attendance policy. Okay, Chief Wells, want to address that report? Any items you want to flag?
No, I just, through you, Mayor Peabody, here to answer questions if anybody has any.
Okay. Questions then? Any questions? Yes, Councillor Elphick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, just a comment to staff. I did have a number of concerns that I did bring to the attention of Chief Wells and staff prior to the meeting, and I just wanted to thank them for taking those into consideration in producing an updated draft. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Good. Okay. All right then. All those in favor?
Yes.
Okay, that's carried. Elmwood Community Center, moved by Councillor Lifeso, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that we approve report 18 Elmwood Community Center accessibility grant application prepared by Mark Coleman, Director of Community Services and Hamilton Clerk, and in doing so confirms and ratifies the application to the Enabling Accessibility Fund mid-sized projects for improvements, the Elmwood Community Center. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Lifeso.
Thank you, Your Worship. My apologies for arriving late to the meeting. Not a question, just a comment. The Elmwood Community Center Board is very excited about the project, and we want to express our thanks to Mark for looking into the opportunity and working closely with us on it.
Okay.
And also hopefully working with Les Gray on it as well.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. All those in favor?
Yes.
Carried. July water and wastewater, moved by Deputy Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Lang, that we receive report UT 2021-12, July 2021 water and wastewater maintenance prepared by Greg Fertney, Director of Operations for Information. Okay. Questions? All those in favor?
Yes.
Carried. External audit service, moved by Deputy Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that we receive report FIN 2021-25 external audit service contract extension prepared by Trish Territory CFO, and doing so approves a 1-year contract with Baker Tilly for the 2021 year-end audit. Any questions there? No. All those in favor?
Yes.
Carried. Walkerton District mammography machine donation request, moved by Councillor Adding, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that we received report FIN 2021-24 Walkerton District Hospital Foundation mammography donation request prepared by Trish Territory CFO and for information purposes, and approves the following donation. Okay. All right, so we'll discuss that report. Yes, Councillor Adams.
Yeah, thank you, Trish, for getting information, and I know you shared it with council. We've got funds in a reserve fund, so that's great news. The one question that may come back would be splitting it into 22 and 23. And so we may want to reach out to the committee and the foundation and see if that works for them. We do have money in the reserve, so we probably could do it in 22. So just by way of comment, but certainly absolutely support this. As we had mentioned, I know council supported it strongly at the last meeting on the delegation, and just say it one more time. We might want to check on the 22 versus 23 on the funding side.
Okay. Do you think we're able to do that? Split it in two? I don't know. Okay, anyway, Councillor Elphick, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My comments were going to be to continue with the 2021 contribution, but to defer any other discussions until the 2022 budget. And I fully support this initiative, fully support the project. I just know when the organizers were here at the previous meeting, they had talked about timelines, and just to make sure that we can express our support, continue our contributions, and then bring this back, seeing where fundraising goals, and that is at our next budget meetings, would be my comments. But again, I fully support the project.
Okay. Councillor Lang.
Through Mayor Peabody, I was going to mention timelines too, but Councillor Elphick spoke to that. I wasn't at last meeting to be in. Is this considered in person? I'm not really in person in virtual life to watch it, but I did take in the delegation on my own time, and I certainly support this. My mother-in-law is a breast cancer survivor, and I think this is a great initiative for community. And however we can do this to support this group, I'm 100% on board, as I'm sure the rest of the council is. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, Ms. Sartari, I have two different ideas. What number should I put in? Somebody wanted to split it, but the direction seems to be.
I think it's fair to put a commitment for 2021, and then we can discuss the 2022 contributions at that point in time during the budget deliberations.
Yeah, okay, all right. So we'll leave it that way. Good. Okay, what was the 2021 commitment then?
I had recommendation of $10,000 for 2021.
Okay. All right, I'll put that in. Okay, is that okay? Yeah, all those in favor?
Yes.
Okay. Shaylin Sulky fundraising support request moved by Deputy Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Lang, that the Council of Municipality of Brockton hereby receives report FY 2021 and 23 Shaylin Sulky fundraising support request prepared by Sister Sori, CFO, and in so doing directs the CFO to send a letter of acknowledgement and support only to adhere to the donation policy as outlined. Deputy Mayor Gierzak.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Peabody. And I don't know if this request was timed to coincide with the Olympics, but certainly we saw lots of examples of why supporting sports within our communities are a wonderful thing to do. We've got somebody representing our community nationally and internationally. And if our policy doesn't give us some flexibility to provide support for that, I would certainly make a motion to amend our policy. So I'd like to find a way to support this individual and similar people who've contributed to that recognition of our community, and it certainly provides great role models for younger people in the community. So that's my comment. I'd like to see us find a way to support this individual to the tune of $500, $1,000. Thank you.
Okay. Point of information, one of the fighters going with Shaylin lives up on Side Road 15 also. He didn't send a letter. Okay, Councillor Adams.
Yeah, I was for one of the councillors that have been on for the last 7 years. We have gone outside of policy on a one-on-one basis. I know there's always the concern about setting precedent and so on, but we always were very cautious with that. But we did help out on numerous cases very similar to this. I wasn't thinking so much 500 to 1,000. I think I was thinking of a more nominal donation, but that would, I'm sure, be appreciated and help. I was wondering about $100 or $200, and I'm certainly that's a discussion with council. But I would not have a problem, again, on a one-on-one basis, looking at trying to support in some way helping a resident going to an international event, as Dan mentioned.
Okay. Any other input? We have a few numbers out there. We have no definitive no's, but we have some positives. So what would council like me to do? Councillor Lang?
Through you, Mayor Peabody, based on the letter, I support this lady, and I think this is great for our community and her representing us. Is there, do you know from the organization in town that she's representing as well, is there any other athletes representing that kickboxing group? The reason I ask is if we are delivering or are going to agree upon a donation tonight, that we donate one set amount to that group and that they distribute it accordingly. I just, again, the precedence in setting, if we do $500, for example, and 4 other athletes come forward, now we've gone to that, where if we do one nominal donation to that group, then if there's other athletes and we're supporting them all.
Yeah, there's four going, James. And I know Danny Richardson lives up on the 15th Side Road. So,
Then I might suggest that we donate $800, $200 each to support each athlete for our municipality.
okay, how does that sound, Dan? You had suggested first. Okay, Steve?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. I'll amend the motion accordingly. 800 for the group. Going, I can't remember where they're going. Overseas. Okay, all those in favor?
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right, now we're on to public notification. Temporary bridge closure. DS Weiss Memorial Bridge is still closed. Service disruptions. Temporary road closures for reconstruction. We've got Chepstow Bridge, George Street, Queen Street, Elmwood, and Bruce Road 4. Temporary road closure, Side Road 15. Bruce County are temporarily closing Side Road 15 east of Walker for 2 days during the week, August 9th to the 13th, due to milling and paving at the intersection with Bruce Road 4. Bruce Road 4 and 19 to the north will be reduced to single lane traffic. Traffic delays are expected. Local traffic can access Side Road 15 from Maple Hill Road off Bruce Road 4 to Concession Road 2 south of the Durham Road. Okay. On to our accounts, moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Elphick. That the Council of Brockton approve payment of the accounts in the amount of $1,510,658.21. All those in favor?
Yes.
Okay, it's carried. On to the information items. Moved by Councillor Adams, second by Councillor Elphick, that we receive all items provided in section 11. Are there any things people want to flag in that long list tonight? Okay, all those in favor?
Yes.
Carried. We have our bylaws for tonight. And we also have a bylaw to add to that. Would be bylaw 104, being a bylaw to amend Brockton Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2013-26 as amended tonight with our public meeting. Moved by Deputy Mayor Gierzek, seconded by Councillor Adams, that the Council of Valley Brockton authorized the following bylaw be read and acted, signed, sealed, numbered as followed. Bylaw 2021-102, adopt amended firefighter attendance bylaw, and bylaw 2020-104, which is the zoning amendment out to Cargill. Councillor Lifestyle?
Once again, my apologies for joining the meeting late, but I do have a conflict of interest with respect to the bylaw 104.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all those in favor?
Yes.
Carried. On to our committee minutes, moved by Councillor Lang, second by Councillor Elphick, that the Council of Survivor Actor receive the minutes of the following committees and or as boards as presented. Physician recruitment, February 24th, March 10th, and May 12th. All those in favor?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Carried. Then we go down to new business brought forward, item 15. And Councillor Lang had the agenda amended to address something. Councillor Lang, did you want to?
Yeah, certainly, if I may, through you, Mayor Peabody. Like I stated in my motion, I just delighted the conclusion of what we've seen of the court case that ended with the Saugeen Municipal Airport. And Mr. Englishman, I would just ask that council be updated as we are a council of whole, and there's a lot of questions coming to all of us, I'm sure, definitely me personally. So if Deputy Mayor Gierzak and Chair of the Commission would like to bring us up to speed on the path forward for the Saugeen Municipal Airport and the said individual, it would be good information for us.
Thank you, Councillor Lang, and thank you for the opportunity to discuss this. I will be a little bit careful in terms of talking about things that are perhaps of a legal nature, and so I'll be a little bit careful along those lines. With respect to the court case that took place, the Crown has not decided, prosecutor has not decided whether or not they will appeal that situation. So I can't really comment on that. Other than to say that court case did take place. It was ruled in favor of the pilot in question, and the Crown prosecutor is evaluating that situation. With respect to moving forward, the individual in question does not have access due to non-payment of fees. Again, that took place in February of this year. Subsequent to our notification that he had missed the 30-day deadline to pay his fees, checks did arrive. We have communicated to him through his lawyer that with the termination of that access agreement, he's very welcome to sign the new access agreement. And our desire to move forward with the new access agreement is that the previous access agreement was certainly 25 years old, and it did contribute to the problems that arose with this individual. So wishing to ensure further clarity and not to have further problems arise, we have been sticking to that position. Now, the pilot in question has not responded with any expressions of concern with respect to that new agreement, has not made any recommendations in terms of his concerns with respect to that new agreement, has just wanted to continue with his existing access agreement, which did contribute to the problems we've seen in the past.
Okay. Councillor Lang.
Just to follow up then, through your Mayor Peabody, Dan, then with the matter being, I understand there's an appeal process, and from my understanding, because it's public knowledge that the payment was missed by a mere days, can what now has been done put aside and allow this individual to pay those fees and return to being a member of this airport and back to day-to-day duties and time and passion of what this person has spent many, many years. And then a second to that, if that is the case, there's still the concrete block that is in front of this individual's hangar that is, it's a tough one to explain when members of the public ask you what's going on. You really don't have an idea other than what is public and what you read in the newspaper and what you read online that's come out of an unfortunate, embarrassing court case, in my opinion. Is there something that we can do to put bygones be bygones and move forward with this individual and allow them back into their hangar, remove the block and try and bury the hatchet, so to speak, and move forward?
I would certainly hope that that will be the case moving forward. There's been no suggestions, recommendations, any discussion whatsoever coming from his side. So I have no idea what might be amenable to him. But certainly that would be our goal long term.
And just one more, Mayor Peabody, just to follow up then, has the commission met since the decision of the court?
Yes, we have.
And maybe you can't speak to this because of some legal issue or legal ramifications, but what's the thought of the commission with this individual then too? Are they on this, are you feeling on the same page that you want to move forward positively with this individual, or is it kind of a wait and see with the appeal and continue?
No, it has always been the case since day one that we wanted to move ahead in a positive way with this individual.
Okay. No, and I understand there's a lot of sensitive nature here. It's just we are a council as a whole, and it's embarrassing to continue to read this and receive emails and walk downtown Walkerton and elsewhere and not really know how to answer questions because I really don't know other information than what I read in the newspaper. So I'll leave it at that. I know we're speaking more to some other issues later on tonight, but I just thought it was fair to our council that we get an update with this unfortunate incident. What's the time frame for the appeal, and when will we know if there's a path forward at all?
With respect to that, the prosecutor did go on vacation shortly afterwards, and I haven't heard from her since. So we'll follow up with that. And I can't predict where they might go in the future. I think as far as the airport is concerned, that's a past issue. We would like to move forward. So whether it moves forward or doesn't from the prosecutor's position, we really, I don't think we have much influence there.
Can we remove the concrete block? Can I ask, I know the commission makes that decision, but can I ask on behalf of our council, and I hope I have the support of council, that we have a letter drawn on behalf of us that you, maybe Dan, can take back to your group and ask that this block be removed as a sign of, positivity and a sign of, hey, let's next steps and let's go somewhere else than where we are today. Is that something that we can do?
Let me suggest that addressing that in much more detail really gets into the legal weeds that we've been in the past. So certainly council could make that request, and then I would respond in a closed session to give you feedback on the pluses and minuses of trying to proceed along that path.
Can you respond in open, just so the public know, because I don't know this answer, why there is a cinder block in front of this individual's hangar? I don't know. I'm asked, and I don't know, as a counselor, I have no idea what the answer is. So I'd like to just, and I'm sure everybody would like to know what that answer is.
Yeah, no, I don't think I can do that.
Okay.
Without getting into details.
That's fair, Dan. No, I just thought I'd ask.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Adams.
Yeah, no, I think, James, I think the line of questioning was appropriate. And thank you for bringing it forward. I would like to see that concrete block removed as soon as possible, like soon. And I know that we are one member of 3 on a commission, but I think that message I feel should go back to the committee. I have no idea, as you mentioned, James, why it's still there. And I think it is embarrassing. So it would be, I think, appropriate for that after the court case ruling to have that removed. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, I'm hoping that taxpayers' money is not being used here. I think we need to come up with a solution. James, you spoke to that very well. We need to come up with a solution and move forward in a positive way. But I would like to see that block gone as soon as possible.
So I can take that request forward as your representative on the commission, and the commission can respond in a more formal manner.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Councillor Elphick.
I just wanted to acknowledge the questions as well. I think that it's a very valid area. I've certainly had questions myself, and I appreciate Deputy Mayor Gierzak providing the responses that he can. I had understood that there was an existing access agreement, or at least a continuing access agreement until matters were resolved, and I thought that was in place until 2022. But I guess that's obviously fallen through now with the non-payment. You know, I just think that this is a great example, though, of how we have to receive these responses and effectively develop some sort of solutions going forward. You know, as I think Councillor Adams alluded to, we're only one of three, but certainly where we've been hasn't been great for the municipality, and we have to be committed to a path forward. And I actually think that, you know, and I appreciate you'll take it back to the commission, but I certainly would endorse something coming from council in a letter format to the commission with a copy to our other two stakeholders about our willingness to find a path forward to this situation to come to an effective resolution.
Yeah.
Okay, any other further comments? Councillor Lifeson.
Just for the record, I'd be voting against such a motion. I think that we've set it up, in my opinion, as an independent board, and that by us trying to direct the independent board what to do, I think we're overstepping, I think, our boundaries and our rules. And I think part of what we have to make clear to a lot of this is an independent, in my opinion, an independent board. That we may support it, we may direct somebody to it, but there are more directors on that board than just the 3 municipal reps. And I think if you start doing that, you run into the same problem with Saugeen Valley, West Ontario, SMART, that we all have our, from my opinion, sitting on SMART, we as a municipality, we support it. As a councillor from Brockton, I will bring forward Brockton's concerns. But at the end of the day, SMART's an independent corporation responsible for their own actions. Now, they can take our opinions one way or the other, because again, at the end of the day, they're getting finance from us. But I really do think we start mixing up our roles when we start doing those kinds of letters. Just my opinion.
Okay, so you're not serving a notice of motion then, Dean. Okay, James.
Yeah, and mine, just again, point of clarity for Councillor Lifeson, my suggestion wasn't a letter of direction, more of an ask of our council, so that it could go through the proper channels for the Saugeen Municipal Airport to consider. Sorry if I didn't, it was more of an ask than a letter of direction. So just a point of clarity there.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Gierzak has heard your concerns of the 3 councillors who expressed those. It's going to take them back to the board. Do we need a motion, or does that suffice? The direction that he heard, he's acknowledged it. I don't know. Ms. Hamilton, can you give me some help there? Or, oh, Councillor Elphick has his hand up.
Yeah, I just would say, Mr. Mayor, I think this is a topic of importance that it would be meaningful to have something captured in our minutes. And if a motion is necessary, then I would support that. Simply that, you know, we accept the report that was provided by Deputy Mayor Gierzak and the discussion or the recommendations that come out of that discussion. Mm-hmm. And I think Deputy Mayor Gierzak's committed to that. He's already alluded to that on this call.
Okay,
Yes, through you, Mayor Peabody. Certainly our discussion and the points that council have raised will be minuted. I think Deputy Mayor Gierzak has certainly made that commitment to make those comments known to the commission. Beyond that, I think if there was any type of formal response, I would suggest that should probably be a formal motion in accordance with the procedural bylaw. But yes, I will have minuted the contents of this discussion. And I think if Deputy Mayor Gierzak has any questions about that, I'd be happy to give him a copy of the minutes as drafted. And certainly the commission would be welcome and free to view this meeting and any of our council meetings on YouTube as well, if they'd like to see the discussion in its entirety. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Adams.
Sorry, Chris, I guess my hand stayed on.
All right.
I'm fine at this point.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Gierzak, then Councillor Lang.
Thank you. Through you to Fiona. Our next meeting is August the 18th. So if you have those draft minutes to me, that'll give me some more concrete words and refresh my memory a little bit going into that meeting. Okay, thank you.
So, thank you.
Okay, so we had 3 councillors express that, and I too would like to see the concrete block removed. I did express that back in February, as well as I expressed my concern that the fees should be paid too. So, both sides. So I would like to see the block removed and the fees paid. Okay, Councillor Elphick.
Just on that point, Mr. Mayor, if it's appropriate for council to consider a motion, though, recommending to the Sauga Municipal Airport for the removal of the concrete block. In that way, it allows Deputy Mayor Gierzak to go to the commission, speaking on behalf of Brockton Council, having that decision ratified or having that decision being made by council. And then it's not simply Deputy Mayor Gierzak giving an update. It's a motion that's passed at this council meeting, recommending that to the SMA. Certainly, I'm not, respecting Councillor Lyso's point, not directing, but certainly that I think it is the will of council to recommend strongly that the concrete boulder be removed.
If that's your direction, then you need to make a notice of motion to amend the procedural bylaw to get the notice of motion on the floor. Deputy Mayor Gierzak.
Thank you. And through you to Councillor Elphick, I think proceeding as we've discussed, if we can have a formal response coming back from the Airport Commission, that may be something we can deal with in camera and deal with in more detail. And once you have that information, if you feel that that motion that you recommend is still of interest or required, then that would be a good time to do that. You'll have more information than you have now.
Okay. All right. Steve, do you still have your hand up, or?
Yeah, no, I did this time. Yeah, I just wanted to say if I think we need to be cautious. I think that's why James brought it out in open tonight. I think unless there's reason to have it in closed that falls within the parameters of a closed meeting, I think it should come out as much as possible in open. And I guess the good piece would be if that block were removed, then wouldn't need a report back on why it was removed or whatever. So I think we just need to be a little cautious at this point that we keep things in closed, and need to make sure we follow those rules. And I know staff will make sure we do.
Okay, James, got your hand up again.
Yeah, no, I was just going to basically say what Steve said, and I'm okay with it going to close to get more information, but I certainly, once there's information had, I would like to speak to it further if it is the case back in open session.
Okay. All right. We're moving on in item 14. Any further business brought forward? No. Any others? No. Anybody? Okay, I'd like to take this opportunity to promote an event that the Optimists are having next week on Friday, August 20th, to raise money for the Saugeen Hospice Bill. They're having a backyard living tour, and it starts at 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock, and there's 10 backyards that you can go visit, and it's raising money for a great cause. So you can see I bought a ticket, and encourage other members of council to do so to support the hospice. And I know Councillor Lang will be going. I congratulate him on stepping up and joining the board. So thank you very much for your service on that important project for Brockton, Hanover, and South Bruce. Okay, we'll now go in camera. Moved by Councillor Adams, second by Councillor Elphick, that we move in camera at 8:25 to discuss personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, tax reduction request, a committee update, a resident complaint, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land, East Ridge Business Park matter, East Ridge business potential dispositions, and litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals, municipality subdivision update, and a position, plan, procedure, criteria, and structure to be applied to any negotiation carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. East Ridge Business Park property subdivision update. All those in favor?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll now take a break and then feed in camera. Okay. Dean, when are you gonna take that sign down? Behind you. Go Habs, go.
Probably about next May.
The history of teams that come second is not favorable.
I know. I'm not
Track
really
record.
I wasn't optimistic this year. I'm not optimistic next year.
Few that come second make it back.
Yeah, there has been a history of them not doing that.
Yeah.
But it was fun while it lasted, though.
Yeah. Okay, Fiona, you there? Can we finish off? We got quorum.
Yes, Mayor Peabody, absolutely, I'm here.
Okay. All right. So we're rising from closed session, moved by Councillor Lang, second by Councillor Elphick, that we approve the direction provided to staff in closed session. All those in favor? Carried. Bylaws. Oh, I think I screwed this one up, Fiona. I read bylaw 104 earlier in the meeting, didn't I?
You did.
Now you're saying bylaw 105.
That's okay. I can handwrite it on the motion that you read. If you just want to cross it off the motion you have in front of you, there should be the conditional permit bylaw. And actually, perhaps, actually, the motion you should have in front of you should be correct. It might just be the numbering's wrong, and I can always just amend that. So
I already read it. Do you want to just? I should disregard that one because I already read it once, right? Or
I think ultimately the point's being made that we're reading, this would be for the bylaws for the Walker West Estates Inc. conditional building permit agreement. And secondly, also for the 227571 Ontario Limited Agreement of Purchase and Sale.
okay. Yeah, I had McCaig there, but I already read McCaig. But I think I had it wrong, but you can amend it. Okay, moved by Councillor Lang, second by Councillor Elphick, that we authorize the following bylaws to be read next. Title number is followed. Bylaw 103, Walker West Estates Conditional Building Permit Agreement. Bylaw 104, 227571 Ontario Limited Agreement of Purchase and Sale Bylaw. All those in favor? Okay, that's carried. Confirmation of proceedings. Moved by Dan, seconded by Tim, that we authorize that the following bylaw be read and acted. Title number as follows. 105, affirmatory bylaw. All those in favor? Carried. And then motion to adjourn at 10. Steve's back at 10:13. Motion to adjourn. Moved by Steve, seconded by Tim, that we adjourn at 10:13 to meet again August 24th. All those in favor?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we're all done. And I just want to say hello to my daughter. She's back from England today, so I know she's watching it.